De'Aaron Fox signs a 4-year extension with the San Antonio Spurs, and Shams Charania throws a little bit out there in regards to Giannis Antetokounmpo maybe still not being as committed to staying with Milwaukee. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And De'Aaron Fox, who was traded to the San Antonio Spurs, reportedly, the Spurs were the only team on his list of teams that he wanted to go to when that trade request went in with the Sacramento Kings. He ends up being traded to the San Antonio Spurs. Him and Wemby only played like 5 games together last year. And while they're like late last week, there was some talk that, extension wasn't a given for De'Aaron Fox, even though it didn't sound quite right considering what they had to give up to get Fox in the building. Well, De'Aaron Fox has now signed a 4-year, $229 million max extension to stay with the San Antonio Spurs for the next 4 years. Well, 1 year on top of the year that he already had left. And this is just smart business, right? The Spurs are on the precipice of potentially moving into, starting to be that team that could start competing, right? You have De'Aaron Fox, you have Wemby there, you have some other really nice pieces on that Spurs team. And the hope now is that the Spurs are going to be in a spot where they're no longer going to be in the lottery. They're going to be making their move to being a playoff team this upcoming year. And there's a lot of reason to think that. Of course, you expect another step or a leap from Wemby. De'Aaron Fox, you already know what he is with that team. You've added Dylan Harper to this team as well. You still got Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, the veteran in Harrison Barnes down there as well, Stephen Castle, who I didn't even mention yet. It was crazy that I didn't mention him yet. Like, this is a Spurs team with tons of talent. And I think when you also look at Jeremy Sohan, Luke Kornet, Kelly Olynyk, right? They have some players now to also weather the storm a little bit for when Wemby's not there. And so, here's the thing. I'm really excited about what the Spurs team can be. I think, this move for De'Aaron Fox, well, the move that they made at the trade deadline to trade for De'Aaron Fox just made sense from that standpoint of going out there and getting that long-term point guard to be there with Wemby. And now you lock that in further. They do have some balancing things that they need to figure out with Harper and Stefan Castle being there and things like that. But the fact of the matter is that the Spurs still have picks that they can look to move if they want to continue adding to this team. They still have assets. They have young players. If they need to add another veteran to this team, the Spurs sit in a really good spot. I'm really excited to see how this ends up working out. So you get De'Aaron Fox locked in here with the San Antonio Spurs. And I said it on a video not too long ago. Watch out for the Spurs team. The Spurs team is cooking something here. And I really do think they're cooking something special that people aren't quite ready for and aren't quite aware of exactly what they're going to have in a case like that. So, we'll see what's going to happen here. We'll see what the Spurs end up having locked in here. But overall, I think things are in a really good spot. You have De'Aaron Fox now locked in, and this is a Spurs team that you better watch out next season. It's, and I get it. Wemby had some issues. We talked about Wemby and him being guarded by wings at times last year and how it kind of forced him out of his spots. They were able to force him out of the paint because of that. But, as this Spurs team keeps adapting, we haven't even seen nearly the final version of Wemby yet, nothing even close to it. And now you have this Southwest division that I personally think is going to be one of the more exciting divisions to watch in the game of basketball next year. You got the Houston Rockets who added KD. You got the Dallas Mavericks who got Cooper Flag, right? On top of AD and Gafford and the players that they have there. And, once Kyrie Irving comes back, you have the San Antonio Spurs who we just talked about. And the Memphis Grizzlies and Pelicans as teams, too, that have really good young players and some really good talent on that team, on their respective teams. This is a division to watch in basketball next year because there's going to be a nice mix of teams that are ready now and teams that are ascending or teams that are still trying to figure out where they're going to be. And that's going to be a very fun division, I feel, to watch in basketball next year. So look out for that. But the Spurs, they've locked up De'Aaron Fox now to a 4-year, $229 million extension added to the 1 year that he had left on his deal already. And when you look at Fox, who was 17 games after the trade, 19.7 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, 6.8 assists. Like, this is going to be a year where you could see Castle, you could see Wemby, and Dylan Harper as well being here long-term and being under a team control contract for a long time, as well as with Stephen Castle. Like, this is a team to watch. But last time I said that and started getting down there, Spurs fans said, hey, stop telling everybody what we're going to be because we don't need no bandwagon jumpers early on. So I'm going to be a little bit quiet on it. We're gonna move into the next topic, man. Shams has continued, and he's been in touch with this Giannis thing, and he talked about Giannis Antetokounmpo and the fact that, you know, Giannis isn't necessarily all wrapped up or locked in with the Milwaukee Bucks right now, that he's still watching and seeing what's going to happen here with this Bucks team before they have any type of like buy-in for him, as far as like, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, we're locked in. And yeah, listen, this is the what Giannis has the right to have, like this control over this franchise. Like, he has control over his destiny. And you know, the fact of the matter is that the Bucks are going to have to keep making moves to keep Giannis happy, and they're going to have to continually do things to show that they are committed to making the right moves necessary to get this Bucks team to be a contender. If the Bucks are a contender, he's going to be in Milwaukee. There's no doubt about it. The only way that Giannis would ask for a trade and request a trade is that if he feels another team is going to give him the better opportunity to do that. And so, Shams saying that there are teams saying this. Sources tell me there's still nothing set in stone about whether Giannis Antetokounmpo will stay in Milwaukee or whether he'll be leaving. And so he's continued to evaluate his future. I reported in mid-May that he's evaluating whether his best fit is in Milwaukee or elsewhere. And that process is continuing. There have been some real conversations over the last week or two. And that's what it is. And he goes on to say this. The constant question that Giannis has, though, is, can I win a championship with this roster? Is this roster going to be one for the upcoming year of 2026-27? He wants to win a second championship. So he's been asking that question over and over. There are multiple teams waiting in the wings, potentially, if Giannis this season still makes that decision. And they're going to be. Like, when Giannis, if he were able ever to go to the Milwaukee Bucks to the front office, and that's what it's going to have to take, and say, listen, I appreciate what y'all did. I appreciate what y'all tried to do here as far as building a team here in Milwaukee where we can compete, but I don't feel we're where we need to be. And therefore, I want to go somewhere else to be able to compete and win for a title. And that just is what it is. And, if that happens, then the Bucks they're going to acquiesce to that. They're going to go out and get him. And there are going to be tons of teams that are ready to make a move for Giannis. Getting value back for Giannis is not going to be the question. There are going to be teams lining up with their best offers available if that happens. And then the Bucks are going to have to make a decision on what set of assets is best for them and what direction they want to forge. And I even think that for Miles Turner to a degree, too. If Giannis ends up leaving and they need to trade Miles Turner, they could find a team that's willing to take on him and the contract that he has there. And it is what it is there. But, it really would completely change so much of the direction that the Milwaukee Bucks are hoping to avoid if Giannis does ask for that trade. But this is the place we're in. And when the player empowerment movement has definitely changed some, but it's still in this place where you still have to look out and players still have the power to dictate how things are going to go, especially when they have unrestricted free agency that it's not restricted. Like, it's not what we're seeing with the restricted free agents. So, we'll see what ends up happening there. And overall, we shall see. Giannis still holds all the control, all the power. If he asks for a trade, we'll see what ends up happening. But let me know what you guys think on it down below. Do you think that the Milwaukee Bucks have done enough to convince Giannis to maybe at least stay through this season? Do you think that he's going to monitor it up until the trade deadline, and depending on where that record is at the trade deadline, you could see some movement happen around Giannis? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Now, from that to a player that's hoping for some movement, the Jonathan Kuminga Warriors thing has taken so many turns over the last couple of weeks with rumors and things like that it's just been crazy. Like, hearing what the Kings reportedly offered when it came down to that as well. Sam Amick of The Athletic said this. So feels like the focus from the Warriors. I mean, for one, I was actually told that Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis have not even been discussed for what it's worth. And then on top of that, the Warriors' focus seems to be on the pick. And if the Kings want the Warriors' request, is they go completely unprotected on the 2030 first rounder. I think if the Kings feel obliged, then it feels like that deal will get done. And so it feels like the focus is more on the pick than them trying to get any other young prospects from the Kings. Now, that makes some sense for the Warriors, right? The Warriors know that this window they have with Steph, with Dre, with Jimmy, it's a very, very short window, right? Very short window. And so them wanting unprotected first down the road makes a lot of sense for where that team is right now, because they are going to be at that point looking completely towards the future as their 2 timeline thing. Kuminga's really that last young player. That's Moses Moody too, but the last young player of that 2 timelines thing that they tried to do, and hoping that by the time they reach this part, they would have Jordan Poole and Kuminga and these other players that are ready to take over and go forward, and the Warriors could still be something. The 2 timeline thing, that shit came crashing down to a halt. And it is what it is. So the Warriors looking at this and saying, we want an unprotected 2030 pick, and that's just the thing to get that gets us in the door. That's what gets us in the conversation started. I can't really blame them for that. Jonathan Kuminga is still a very, very young player, right? And while they have other young players like Pods there, Moses Moody, who's 23, I think, or 24 years old, like they don't have that player that you look at and you say, all right, once Steph is done and he hangs it up, once Dre is done and he hangs it up, this is the player that we're going to build around going forward. Now, maybe that could have been Jonathan Kuminga had they handled the situation a little bit different, but the woulda, coulda, shoulda is there. Kuminga is willing to wait this out and get his deal, and he's the one that I do think has a big chance of taking that qualifying offer and keeping him pushing after that and going into unrestricted free agency next year. Now, I do think that he wants to avoid that. I do think that, then Steve Kerr is going to have even less reason to play him. And that's what it comes down to it. But I don't think the Warriors want that to happen either. They want to get something back, have some type of value back for Jonathan Kuminga. And I don't feel like that's a bad thing. And so, we'll ultimately see where that ends up shaking out for them. But as it stands right now, you can look out for it. It's about to be ugly around here. And we'll see how that ends up going for this team. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that and everything else down below as always. But that's it. That's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. Catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.